It's 6:30. I hereby call this meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Announcements, awards, special recognition. I believe we have none. Public comment.
Yes, and we do ask prior to the first speaker if everyone can please silence their cell phones. And this meeting is being live streamed, so we do ask that everyone can please keep their comments down, or if needed, please step out in the hallway to have conversations, just to ensure that those watching from home are able to hear. Thank you. First person signed up to speak is Taylor Pessin.
Good evening. My name is Taylor Pessin, and I live in the Glenlock area. Peachtree City has always been a progressive community looking to be a shining example of innovation and planning. We want our community to stand out for its commitment to good planning, not political drama and illegal activity. Transparency is paramount when it comes to local politics, to the point where one of our current city council candidates has it as a campaign platform. Unfortunately, that candidate, along with the councilman she intends to replace, and Councilman Clint Holland, have failed our city in their commitment to transparency by twisting its definition and taking their version of it too far. Government transparency is not and should never be about exposing the vital personal records of the citizens it's in place to protect. By illegally obtaining and then mishandling the Social Security numbers and other personal information of deceased members of our community, Councilman King and Holland, along with candidate Suzanne Brown, have not only violated state law, but the privacy of thousands of the families they are obligated or wish to be obligated to protect. They have put these families at risk of fraud and identity theft, disrupting their lives and potentially prolonging their grief. That includes my own family. These crimes are unforgivable, which is why I'm here today to publicly call for Councilman Holland to put forth his resignation. As a councilman, you should know the procedure for establishing what is and isn't official city business, and by using your title to obtain the records you did, you broke the law, embarrassed our city, and betrayed your own constituents. I also call candidate Brown to drop out of the race for post 2. As a candidate, Brown runs on the same transparency that she apparently is incapable of, and it's no surprise that she's refused to answer questions about her platform, considering she's been busy conspiring with council members to break the law. We don't need any more scandals or conspiracy tainting our municipality. So if she will not drop out, I implore those who have not yet voted to help ensure she does not have the opportunity to represent us. Thank you.
Next person signed up to speak is Sally Odell.
My name is Sally Odell. I'm at 1004 Pleasance Grove. I'm speaking for 60-plus members at the Tennis Center. We collaborated so that you wouldn't have to hear the same thing over and over again. We're delighted to hear that you no longer plan to convert tennis courts to pickleball courts, but we still have some issues. Number one, in the mayor's response, she states that the city is not going to convert tennis courts to pickleball at this time. Does that mean this issue will arise again in the future? If so, are arguments about losing hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue due to losing 6 of 8 of our college and professional tournaments, losing 4 Alta teams, and losing membership still apply? So do the issues of parking and sharing facilities between free pickleball players and pay-to-play tennis players. Second, the mayor's response states that putting pickleball on the city-owned property between the tennis center and Highway 54 may help us stretch our SPLOST dollars by sharing bathrooms and parking. Tennis players pay fees that include parking, bathrooms, showers, etc. It doesn't seem fair that the pickleball players would use them for free. 3, parking is already an issue. The city plans to put fire staff on the lower level. They'll have 4 assigned parking spots. If you add cars for 40 pickleball players, we will clearly not have enough parking on Alta and tournament days. Will we still meet planning requirements for parking? Where are all those people going to park? We understand that a consultant has been hired to update the recreation plan. We hope the consultant will speak to the general public, tennis center members, tennis center staff, as well as pickleball players before making recommendations. The pickleball community is very vocal about being involved with these discussions. Please consult and listen to the tennis center community as well. And 5th, several suggestions to think about in the future. Pickleball is growing rapidly. Perhaps adding courts to the tennis center for pickleball, asking everyone to join the new racket center, attracting pickleball as well as tennis tournaments would increase revenue for Peachtree City and be a win-win. 2nd, has Pebble Pocket, Glen Lockett, Smoke Rise, Kmart, or the old Steinmart building been considered for pickleball courts instead of the tennis center? 3rd, has any thought been given to requiring quiet rackets for pickleball so that the courts at Braylon Rec would not have to be decommissioned? My understanding is that they make a huge difference in the amount of noise. And then last, Tyrone just built
Your time has expired.
Can you finish?
Thank you for your comment.
Tyrone just built 8 courts with 2 bathrooms. Do we know how much they spent, and would that be of help to us? Thank you. We have a world-class tennis facility. Please don't jeopardize our tennis facility. Thank you.
Next person signed up to speak is Linda Ellis.
Hello, I'm Linda Ellis, Crescent Oak Subdivision. I'm going to read this off from a post I saw on the internet. This is rather disturbing. We love Peachtree City and the golf cart path. So this happened maybe a month ago. The search is on for several young men after a woman said she was violently attacked while walking on a golf cart path in Peachtree City. It's been 3 weeks since Martin Saunders said his wife was attacked by a group of young men near their home in the Cedarcroft subdivision. Saunders said he had been at the hospital due to some health issues he was experiencing. He said he told his wife to go back to their home and take care of the dogs. She got home between 6 and 7 and took the dogs out, Saunders explained. He said the next thing he knew, his wife got a hold of him saying she was just attacked. Saunders said his wife was walking their 2 dogs along a golf cart path near their home in the subdivision. He said she noticed a group of young men she believed to be older teenagers coming toward her on the path at a pretty fast speed. He said she noticed 2 of them were hanging off the side of the golf cart. As they got closer, he said she gestured at them to slow down. She's a New Yorker, and if you're plummeting down a golf cart trail and you're teenagers and you're trying to walk your dogs and you're scared, they're going to hit your dogs. She's not scared of yelling out, "Slow down," Saunders said. He said as they passed his wife, one of them grabbed her by the hair and they dragged her for a bit. Saunders said his wife's jeans were ripped, she was bleeding, and she was also hurt her hands. While she's, I just lost it. She said she noticed of them hanging off the golf cart path. He said after she was on the ground face down, she recalled at least one feeling on her body. One of them touched her inappropriately all over, and then the driver apparently yelled out, "Just shoot her," Saunders said. He said his wife managed to make it back to their home on her own after rounding up her 2 dogs. Saunders said she did call the police and she filed a report the following day. Saunders said as of Tuesday night, they hadn't received any updates from the police regarding the investigation. The police haven't been able to uncover anything. It's almost like it didn't happen, and it's very dramatizing for her wife. For his wife. It wasn't until just a few days ago anyone besides Saunders and his wife, besides their closest friends, knew about the attack. He said a friend posted it on her Nextdoor app, quickly started making rounds on social media. In fact, so much so on Monday, 26 days after the alleged attack, Peachtree City Police posted the following statement on their Facebook. We are aware of recent
Your
social
time
media
has
posts.
expired. Thank
Okay.
you for your comment.
Thank you. How do we find out when something like that happens? And shouldn't we know as citizens of Peachtree City what is going on? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next person signed up to speak is Joan Perry.
Could we, hang on just a second, I think if we could, for the last speaker, I would like to have someone address that. Chief, would you do that, please?
Bob's
Yeah,
good.
yeah, Janet, can you please come up, Chief? Thank you.
Good evening, citizens, mayor, and council. There was an extensive investigation into the incident that you have just described. As of Friday, we closed the report out as unfounded. There was no credible evidence that that incident occurred. So it is now closed as unfounded.
Next public speaker.
Joan Perry.
Good evening. I'm Joan Perry, and I live in the Southern Shore neighborhood of Kedron. Regarding the recent public news related to the unauthorized activities of two of our city council members, I want to go on record and publicly share the letter that I sent today to the mayor and the city council in response to this news. I am writing to Mayor Leonard and the city council to express my deep concern and reprehension regarding the recent fraudulent data collection activities conducted by council members Clint Holland and Mike King, in addition to Council Post 2 candidate Suzanne Brown and others. The behavior of the council members involved is an egregious breach of the ethics expected of and the trust placed in our city's officials to carry out one of their key stated functions, and that is to administer, to protect and preserve health, safety, welfare, and morals. Misters Holland and King have exhibited a total lack of ethics of process and cannot be relied upon to execute any degree of ethics of policy. There is no acceptable excuse for the deliberate efforts and fraud undertaken by these individuals. I strongly advocate for the immediate resignations of Clint Holland and Mike King, or their immediate removal from the city council. And I would also like to say that every person who was involved in these activities is equally guilty of fraudulent behavior and is untrustworthy. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to address that, please.
How about we'll do this in council staff topics. We can tackle it in council staff topics.
Fair enough.
Final person signed up to speak is Tricia Stearns.
I'm going to keep it brief. I don't have a letter. Good evening, citizens and council. I concur with what these two ladies have said. I hope that you do all take this seriously. And I think it's big. And I think more than anything, it's a shame that more people aren't here and asking these questions. And I hope y'all look seriously. And more than that, how do we not have this happen again? What procedures can be in place? Like, what can we learn from this and try and not let this happen again? And both Mike King and Clint Holland, I ask you to look at that and look at those that were involved in this situation and those that are in charge representing all of us. How can we feel that this isn't going to happen again?
There are no additional speakers.
Agenda changes.
Mayor, staff would ask that agenda item 7B under the consent agenda be removed.
Can I get a motion?
We have a motion to have, to have consent agenda item B removed from the agenda.
Second?
can't hear you.
Can we confirm?
I have a motion from Frank DeStadio and a second from Mr. Holland. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. It's removed. Thank you. Minutes, October 19th, 2023, regular meeting minutes, October 19th, 2023, executive session minutes.
Mayor, I'd move that we approve the October 19th, 2023 regular meeting minutes and the October 19th, 2023 executive session minutes.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda item A, replacement of skid steer track loader with splost dollars from Public Works. Can I get a motion?
Mayor, I'd move that we approve consent agenda item A.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Old agenda items, we have none. New agenda item 112301, Economic Development Services, Retail Strategies.
Madam Mayor, point of order. Did we miss item B on the consent agenda?
We just
Took
voted
it
to
out.
to scratch it for
Just-
tonight. It's scratched
I
for
was-
tonight.
Okay,
That was on Mr. Meeker's recommendation, so we
Thank
had a motion and a
okay.
second.
I
Thank you.
didn't scratch it out.
Yep. Mr. Kurnow.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone, council. I'd like to give a quick overview of this item in reference to economic development for the city. I have a brief presentation here. The first slide here depicts an organizational change that we just recently made to keep a placeholder for economic development in the city. We haven't had that for some time, and the rest of this presentation will kind of outline some of the parameters that we're going to be talking about as far as economic development is concerned. So one of the key points of economic development, especially from a retail perspective, is what's called a retention and expansion. And through retention and expansion aspects is that opportunity for the city to have a liaison to the business and retail partners, where we would go out and do some data gathering and find out exactly how the city has been operating, how is the permitting process, how have other processes been with interacting with the city. We can put them in touch with business assistance programs, either at the federal level, the state level, or the local level. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, the retention visits are huge. We can find out through that process if anybody's looking to expand their business in the city, if they're looking for additional space in the city. Oftentimes we find out after the fact that a business has left the city, and we would like to have that information as to what those indicators were as to why a business left the city or is downsizing or that. Right now we don't have any of that information available to us, so we don't have an opportunity to kind of put measures or metrics in place to make sure that doesn't happen, or at least put some prevention methods in there. We also want to create some partnerships here, and the interesting thing with creating partnerships is we'd like to link the businesses together so that they can communicate with each other at a local level. For example, there may be an opportunity for a business that's existing in the city that may need warehouse space or additional space, and there could be businesses that offer warehouse spaces. They just are not communicating with each other, don't have that opportunity to reach out to each other to take advantage of that. So anything that we can do to keep that local business local, we'd like to offer that to our businesses. And at this point, I'd like to quickly ask Jasmine to chime in on the last part from some of the work that we're currently doing in developing this aspect.
Yes, so correct. So as Bob mentioned, the Economic Development Department is currently listed under the City Clerk's office, and we also do, as you all know, public information. So we're utilizing our current staff to assist us in some of the things that we can start doing until we have a full-fledged Economic Development Department. So for example, our residents will start seeing some showcase videos where we're showcasing existing businesses and industries that are within Peachtree City. We commonly hear a lot of residents say, I didn't even know we had that type of business in the city. So this is a way to get the business in front of the residents so they know, and visitors, and so they know what type of businesses we offer here in the city of Peachtree City, allowing them to spend their money here and not go outside of the county. So additionally, we'll be adding a business newsletter. We have heard the success of the Slice, and we hope everyone is registered who's here. But we will also be adding an additional newsletter that will be going out solely for our non-home-based businesses. We are also partnering with looking to partner with FCDA, we will be partnering with the chamber to also just provide more information of what the current services they have, as well as services that we currently offer or however we could assist them. And then finally, we're talking about a business survey. In order to understand how we could help support the businesses, we'll be sending out a business survey to find out what's working for them here in Peachtree City, what's not working for them, and different questions to that, just to make the process easier for when they come in to do business with the city. So those are some of the things that we will be implementing within the next coming weeks and months.
Thank you, Jasmine. I put a couple of pictures up here just to indicate some of the things that we've been dealing with here. So for example, the Kmart location closed in January 6th of 2019, so almost 5 years ago. The Steinmart location closed in August of 2020, 3+ years ago. And then the Bed Bath & Beyond just recently closed. So these are some of the larger box stores that we have that have been vacant in the city for a long time. And if anybody knows, have gone to coffee and conversations or conversations with the city manager, I asked that question of the patrons and the citizens, what do we want to do with these locations, and how do we identify opportunities to come back in and so they're not continue to be vacant year after year after year. So one of the things that we need to put together from a economic development perspective is an inventory of all of those available spaces. We also want to bring on a partnership with a company called Retail Strategies, who's going to have a follow-up presentation to this, that can help us with a relationship with those property owners, but more importantly, they can provide us with those market indicators to let us know what retail is actually doing in the area. For example, we've heard a lot about Trader Joe's, for example, and we've had Councilman Holland, we've had some conversations about that. The reality is without actually having a company to come out and tell us what those market indicators are, we don't know why Trader Joe's doesn't want to come to Peachtree City. We can have a good idea, but until we actually have somebody at that corporate level reach out to them and say, what are they looking for? Are you even expanding? And that's one of those things that we need to have that capability of an organization like Retail Strategies to help us with that. The other part that's very important here, as Jasmine was talking about, we do have a relationship with Fayette County Development Authority. However, they have 5 specific focus areas, and you can see them on the screen here. They look for aerospace and aviation, corporate headquarters, film and creative media, technology, and advanced manufacturing. Where the gap is retail. So what we need to do, and what I'm proposing here, is that we hire this company to come in and kind of backfill that gap and give us those indicators that we're going to need to even see if retail is expanding in this area, and if they are, what does Peachtree City have to offer for that? And then finally, what I'd like to do in the fiscal 25 budget is I'd like to propose that we actually create a placeholder in our organization at that director level that reports to the city manager, an economic development office, and that we put some staff in there that would actually help us with those business retention visits and things that right now we're going to be augmenting by having contractual services or bringing a consultant in. We'd actually like to have somebody in-house that can do that and explain further, be part of this organization and part of the city culture to explain why Peachtree City is the great place to be for your retail environment. And at that point, from my presentation, I'd like to ask council if there's any questions. We do have a short presentation from the actual consultant after this, but if you have any questions of me based on this, I'd be happy to answer.
Retail means retail and restaurant?
Yeah, so it's completely retail, so it could be anything that falls into that retail category. There's been a huge market shift, as you'll hear from the gentleman next, as to how retail is functioning now. Everybody's going to online purchasing, so these big box stores are becoming more and more available. So we have to be creative in coming up with ideas to, fill those spaces. The last thing we want to have is like this Kmart location that's been vacant for so many years, and that continued decay of retail in that shopping center as all the stores that were working on that foot traffic to come into them are slowly losing their business, because there's nothing there to draw that crowd.
Quick question. Are we still paying for the Fayette County FCDA's business retention and expansion at all?
No, sir. No, sir. Actually, we have a cost savings. Last year, we budgeted $95,000, and we
Right.
did not spend any of that. In December, we will be coming back in front of council to ask to roll over that, not to carry forward that $95,000. However, this year, because we did anticipate doing some economic development, we did budget about 51,000 in the budget this year as well.
Well, what I'm hearing, I think, is for some time ago, there was a PCDC, or Peachtree City Development Corporation, that was disbanded by council. I don't know exactly who all was on it at the time, but from what I'm seeing, can we get your economic development office off the ground for $95,000 in FY25?
So the answer to that question is maybe.
Maybe.
What we like to do right now is, the immediate need is to fill that gap of where the Development Authority currently is not looking, so from the retail component. So we'd hire the consultant to fill that void for us. I'd come back in that fiscal year budget to let council know what that might look like if we start with one person or two people and where that position actually needs to fall in the hierarchy. So I'll stick with my previous answer of maybe.
Maybe, okay, well, and also, even long before the city was, the payments we gave to the FCDA went to $146,000. And over a period of 5 years, it went back down to the 96,000 or whatever it was. However, even for years prior to that, we always paid $75,000 annually for business retention and expansion. So I guess my question now is, has the county stopped that function for Peachtree City?
So to my knowledge, we haven't had any business retention and expansion in the city since I've been here.
I can remember saying something like 6 years ago, what have they done? But we still had to pay them.
That's correct.
Right, and right now we're not paying. I can tell you that right now we have new businesses coming into Peachtree City,
Well, I
and
know.
we do no visits.
Yeah.
We really have no communication with the business unless they first come in or they're coming back for a permit or a renewal. But we don't currently have anyone working with our businesses in that aspect.
I think this is a need.
I'm agreeing, but I'm throwing a little
Yeah.
historical perspective into it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I look at the vacant buildings and it's concerning. I mean, I know the retail landscape is changing. We all order stuff from Amazon, but, yeah, so it's good if we try to do something to fill those voids.
Well, I know we need to fill voids, but I don't want people to get overly confident, because when you talk about buildings like Steinmart, Kmart, and Bed Bath & Beyond, those are private properties. And they're different, there's, at least in each one of those shopping centers, they have a different ownership, and they own those buildings, and they get to say what comes and goes there. I mean, there's some coordination done, surely, but they have the bottom line. So don't get your hopes up about filling up Steinmart with a pickleball court.
Yeah.
Also, I do want to add that it doesn't happen overnight. So if you
Yeah.
look
Oh,
at
yeah.
this
I
agreement
got
that happens with, that Retail Strategies talks about, and he's on the line, we'll have him join us shortly. This is not an overnight process. Most of these major businesses, the businesses we would like to see here in Peachtree City, have planned out where they're gonna go years in advance. And so we would be probably 3 years, 4 years down the line, but it's a process of getting in front of those people, having a seat at the table. Right now, we don't have even a seat at the table.
Which is why I go back to my $96,000 question.
Yeah, so you're getting a steal here. Don't say it too loud because he can
steal,
hear
yeah.
you.
Got it.
So I do want to
Now
introduce.
I know why Paul Salvatore isn't here tonight.
So I do want to introduce Neil Graves with Retail Strategies. And he's just
Good
going to talk.
evening.
Oh, let's see if you can hear you. There we go.
There he is.
Can y'all hear me?
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you, Jasmine. Appreciate it. Real briefly, I've appreciated all the questions and discussion thus far on this topic. I'd like to just kind of walk through kind of what this partnership could look like between the city of Peachtree City and Retail Strategies, and a little about who we are, our process, and kind of how we view this and work with communities. I wish I could be there with you all in person tonight, but I had to juggle a few things with the kiddos this evening and my wife's work schedule as well. So I find myself in Atlanta, but hopefully we can get down there soon and visit in person. To kind of kick it off, So our organization is in about 36 states active. So we're across the country. We're about 75 to 80 people spread across 3 different offices. Our primary headquarters are in Birmingham, and then we have a group of folks here in Atlanta Metro, and then also in Dallas-Fort Worth. I emphasize that because, we are more of a national approach. We have a lot of people putting feelers out there and building relationships across the national and regional retail and restaurant industry to try to understand what those trends are, try to understand who those decision makers are, and really to try to facilitate opportunities for those retailers and restaurants, on behalf of the communities that we work with. So quickly, we were born out of a commercial real estate firm, which was founded in 2005, survived the Great Recession of 07, 08. And really, we've been working with communities for more than a decade in this capacity. We were largely grounded in the national retail side, but as we began to work with communities around the Southeast, we started to hear from them and understand that there were issues around small business support, downtown revitalization, education as it relates to staff and elected officials, regarding all things retail, economic, and community development. And so we've really grown since then. And we strive to kind of, be a human effort centered organization to support our expertise and the things that we do as an organization on the private side with retailers and developers, to the benefit of the communities we work with. And so really kind of what's been mentioned already, we are access, right? We are a seat at the table for those decision makers in the industry. You'll see a whole lot of different groups up here, professional organizations, National League of Cities, which is coming to Atlanta here in a couple of weeks, will be there. ICSC, which is the National Retail Group. We've got a seat at the table with those. So the president of our organization is on the board of trustees with those, which gives us access to retailers. People know who we are. And just by means of having a group of cities that we work with, folks are able to come to us and allow to lean on us and our team to better understand what those opportunities are in the market. So why do we exist, and kind of what does this partnership potentially look like? Really, there's benefit to retail. I heard a lot of folks tonight touch on it a little bit, regarding quality of life. That is a competitive advantage. Yes, Fayette County focuses on retention as it relates to industry, manufacturing, aerospace, et cetera. But really, you want to focus on quality of life to attract that workforce, to really improve that element of quality of life, quality restaurants, to keep your kids to come back, and really, promote the progressive vision that Peachtree City kind of looks for and works towards. But in doing so, to kind of achieve all these things, you got to put a lot of effort, you got to put in a lot of time. This is very much a relationship-based industry. I believe I heard one of the councilmen mention that, each one of these shopping centers and properties, has owners, whether they be local, whether they be somewhere in the state of Georgia, or whether they be a real estate investment trust somewhere up in New York. So this is a people business. It's about knowing who these decision makers are, and it's experience too, right? So we've been doing this a very long time. When we approach a community, our goal is to come up with a strategic plan, really discover the community, do the due diligence on a lot of different fronts, which I'll briefly talk about, and then connect those opportunities and advance the conversations, right? And this is kind of an ever ongoing process for us as it relates to communities. Data is constantly changing, new developments coming into the market. Retail from a macro standpoint is evolving and has done so greatly in the last few years, particularly as it relates to e-commerce. So how do all these things affect some of the decisions and the targeted prospects of businesses that we're trying to recruit to our client communities? How does that all factor into our overall plan? So this is a kind of a living, breathing exercise, so to speak, that we continue to go. And it really starts with data and understanding the community. But real estate for us really drives the decision. As a practicing commercial real estate firm, we understand what it takes to get deals done from a transactional standpoint. And so it's understanding those components and really moving the deals along as it relates to the transactional side of things and all those parties involved, including the city, to make a deal happen. And so collectively, we're trying to advance all of these things on behalf of our client community, which would be Peachtree City, and the businesses and property owners and shopping center owners that exist in that market. So what does this kind of look at from a high level? I hope you all were able to kind of review some of the proposals that we shared with staff before this presentation. But what we're going to do in looking at Peachtree City as a community, which is roughly 37,000, from a population standpoint, is we're going to really try to understand each corridor from the neighborhood level, all the way up to get a sense of where consumers are coming from, what are the strengths and weaknesses within each corridor, and what are those opportunities as well. So in looking at different things in your market, we did analyze part of the market to better understand kind of what that opportunity could be. And so if you take the public that's at Wilshire, just looking at that and mobile data collection, just alone, we can kind of estimate that it draws a consumer population upwards of 70,000 people, right? Which is greater than all of those that are in the city limits of Peachtree City. So really trying to understand this across the board, across the community, and then how does this tie into, really where the community wants to go from a vision standpoint. What types of restaurants do you want to attract? And then, what's viable? Who's expanding right now? What do the demographics look like? Are communities growing? Are there voids in the market? What communities like Peachtree City across Georgia and or the country could we compare you all against to better understand, what target opportunities as far as number of restaurants or certain types of restaurants they have that you don't? And how can we advance those conversations? And then in addition, all of these data points that we're going to utilize, not only in marketing the community, we really want that to be a benefit to the community's use, right? So for staff and for existing businesses, existing property owners, how can they leverage our data, our perspective on this, our marketing collateral to really better market their opportunities? And really we'll serve as an extension of them as we kind of analyze this market and educate what we find as it relates to that. I mentioned how real estate, that the data kind of, brings up the opportunities and really drives some target end users that we might go after as it relates to a community, but real estate really drives the decision for us, right? So when we come to a market, the first 60 to 90 days are really the discovery period for us, right? 30 to 45 days, we've pulled all of your data, we've done that 30,000 foot view, and then we want to come to the market and we want to inventory real estate. And we're going to do this with you guys and also alone to better understand what we consider A+ opportunities in the market. A lot of which have been discussed tonight, some of these vacant big boxes, right? But in doing this, we're really evaluating sites as it relates to these key things, signage, visibility, parking, access, ingress, egress, traffic counts, what other like tenants are there that would potentially attract other similar tenants. So co-tenancy is a big thing as it relates to retailers and restaurants. So how do we identify specific end users for vacancies in all the centers to better attract these opportunities? And we call this home run real estate, right? And what does that look like from our standpoint? So if you go to LoopNet right now, Crexi and some of these pay-to-play, marketing platforms for real estate in the commercial real estate industry, this is what Peachtree City looks like from a retail availability right now. For example, the Steinmart's not even on there. The vacant Kmart's not on here as it relates to that. So this is kind of how an outsider, say it's from California or Texas or somewhere else, if they're looking at your market, this is what they're currently seeing. We go in your market and we really inventory each of these things through the boots on the ground and the windshield analysis. And then we pair these with kind of some of the resources that we have to better understand who these owners are, getting in touch with them, building that relationship and understanding what their needs are, what drives them from a standpoint of why they aren't selling or why they aren't leasing, and we're trying to get you all that feedback. But at the end of the day, we're trying to plant seeds to hopefully get at more looks and then also work towards a transactional opportunity. So just as an one aerial of a market that we work with in Tennessee, and kind of all of those green dots represent different sites, a lot of which are off market. That we've inventoried, that we have information on, that then we are putting in customized flyers and sharing with prospects at the local, the regional, and the national level. And so really it's that amplified exposure, excuse me. It's that persistency. It's getting you all in the conversation and then getting you feedback as to, why a particular tenant isn't moving on your market. Say it's Trader Joe's or something of the likes, or, if somebody said yes, what are the challenges as it relates to why they haven't moved forward, right? Or, we can't find a site. Well, why is that? And trying to get all of those information, data points put together for your all's benefit, so that we collectively can address challenges, collaboratively to move forward. So in looking at your all's market particularly, I've heard about the vacant Kmart. We've talked about the Stein Mart. There are other markets or other centers within the market where we have relationships with either the leasing agents or the owners of those places already based off our work in Georgia. I thought it would be beneficial to add this REIT report, which is a report that our team puts together, usually when it surrounds a lot of these big box announcements of vacancies and what's going on. We put this together, I think it was in Q2, regarding the Stein Mart spaces after the news broke out that many of those were going to go, that are already vacant, but what was going to backfill them, right? So if you look at this, Burlington, Crunch Fitness, this just gives you an idea of some of those that have backfilled a lot of those spaces. There's a lot of data that our team mines and shares really with the world to better understand what's going on as it relates to these trends, to keep track of it, not only from the community standpoint, but from the broker, developer, and property management side to better understand, what kind of targets could backfill these things. I want to mention a little thing in regards to, this is just like any other economic development process, right? There are a lot of moving pieces and parts that go into this. Our job is really to come in and be your advocate, understand your community, and then get in front of all of these folks that are involved in the retailer opening process at every step of the way and as early as possible to try to keep the community in the conversation, to keep the property in the conversation, to keep that shopping center or new shopping center in the conversation. So, obviously consumers, Wall Street investors drive a lot of what goes on in retail. E-commerce has taken a huge, monumental impact on the shape of brick and mortar. But it has done so in a positive way. Really, we're seeing a lot of big box downsize. We're seeing a lot of folks focus on having an e-commerce presence, but then they know that it's strengthened by having more brick and mortar presence. This has also benefited retailers looking outside of larger metro markets into smaller markets and more suburban markets, which they didn't do prior to, say, COVID. And so all of these things help drive some of this consideration as it relates to openings, and it's something that we keep tabs on and try to share with our communities throughout a partnership. But I want to point out that there's a lot of people involved in this, whether it's coming directly from corporate, and then there's usually a local person or a regional person within a state who represents these retailers that are going out and finding them. They identify the markets, they identify sites. This has to get approved by a committee first, right? The numbers have to work economically. Then they decide they might want to move forward on things. And usually a community doesn't get involved until a developer gets involved or until there is some sort of request for permitting or issuance of occupancy. So really there's so much that happens before a city really knows what's going on. And unless there's somebody getting in front of, a shopping center owner about vacancies or in front of the end users directly, this is just a really good opportunity for communities to get ahead, focus on retention, focus on business recruitment, and kind of understanding, what we can do, what we can influence as partners in this process to make sure that really Peachtree City is elevating to the quality of life and the opportunities from a retail restaurant standpoint that you're aiming to go towards. I will say that this site selection timeline, on average, obviously things can happen a lot quicker and sometimes a lot slower. On average, we really see from discovery all the way to opening can take anywhere from 18 to 36 months. So that's something that we really want to emphasize with communities, which is a lot of times what we try to do 3-year partnerships that go a year at a time. because really we see the greatest return on investment with the seeds we plant as it relates to that. Real quickly on deliverables, I talked a little bit about kind of that first timeline, that first 90-day timeline. You know, we're going to have all the market analysis, which is ongoing, a customized recruitment plan for the community that is approved and delivered to you all between days 75 and 90, and then a marketing guide that's updated as frequently as we need to do. And you know, I want to stress that a lot of data, a lot of marketing collateral gets pulled, and analysis gets pulled for small businesses and property owners and staff that might have special projects or focus areas, and so we get utilized for that as well. It's a commercial advisory and just data resource for the community. And finally, you know, I just want to emphasize that everybody's got a role in the process, right? Economic development is complicated. There's a lot of different players that are at the table. And so, you know, we have a role in this, and our role is to really try to bring everybody together, bring our expertise and our connections so that local brokers, commercial developers, community leaders like yourself, retailers, tenant reps, and property owners can all kind of work together and influence the things that they can to kind of move things forward. And so what we try to stress with communities is what can we influence, right? We don't control the property. We don't control the retailers. So all we can do is try to tell the positive story that is Peachtree City, promote those opportunities, and address the challenges as they arise as it relates to site selection. The final thing that I'll mention is that as this manifests, you know, we are reporting back to the community generally on a quarterly basis. There's obviously a lot of engagement in between those major quarterly updates, but throughout the year, we are going to conferences and we are representing the community from a national level, regional level, talking to regional concepts, restaurants and retailers, and also national, regional, and restaurant concepts. So ICSC, International Council of Shopping Centers, which has now rebranded itself to Innovating Commerce and Serving Communities. It's the big one. It's been around for a long time, and we're very active in that. We just had a really big show here in Atlanta. We had great presence. We hosted a very large networking event with a lot of different retailers and end users and retailer decision makers at that. But these are some of the select shows that Peachtree City would be a part of and the team that we have. And then Retail Live is an emerging concept trade show that is similar to ICSC, but really focuses on the relationship building and kind of like speed dating as it relates to retailers and getting feedback on sites, you know, on markets, and understanding kind of where they're going as it relates to growth, particularly as it relates to a particular region or a market. And so we send teams to each of these shows every year, and that's how you'll be represented in that capacity beyond the phone calls and kind of the grind that we're making with outreach on a daily basis. So what does that team look like? Primarily, you guys would be stuck with me, whether that's a good thing or bad thing. And then we've got two folks that would be supporting on the portfolio director side as well as retail recruiters. So those are your three primary points of contact, but we have an army of folks behind us that are dedicated to the implementation efforts that we're working on in Georgia. So that's research, it's marketing. I mentioned our president, Lacey Beasley, being on the board of trustees for ICSC. And then these other folks will jump in and support the project in partnership as needed. With that being said, I really appreciate the opportunity. There's a lot of exciting challenges, I think, with working with Peachtree City and as it relates to some of the existing centers. It's obviously a great thing to be a part of a community that knows where they're going and how they want to grow. And that really helps us, you know, particularly from a staff standpoint. If there's a clear vision on objectives and things that we need to focus on, we're really the extension of that. We're an extension of you all as an elected body. And so with that being said, I hope we can, you know, find a way to work together, and I'll open it up to any questions. I do have a couple case studies that I can share that are largely around Kmart and vacant grocer, you know, just experiences that we've had in recent years. So, you know, we are very familiar to the vacant big box situation that exists in a lot of markets across the Southeast.
Mr. Graves, how familiar are you with Peachtree City already, or are you starting from scratch?
Yes, ma'am. So I have personally never worked in Peachtree City. So I have over a decade of experience of doing retail, commercial, industrial, and housing and community development on the utility side in the state of Georgia. So the closest community that I worked directly with was Noonan. Very familiar with Coweta County. I have a strong relationship with the utility partners in that part of the metro Atlanta area. It's not to say that haven't been to Peachtree City. I've been down there many a times. I've driven the market many a times. I'm familiar with many of the sites that I showed up earlier, including Braylon and the Bacon Steinmart. And I know a lot of the folks that own these assets, as well as represent them from a leasing standpoint, based off some other experiences that I've had at the retail strategies team, working with clients across Georgia, but also my previous experience on the economic development side, the statewide level.
Thank you. Council?
Very good question, madam. Is this on?
Yes, it is.
Very good question. I think you're going to find that Peachtree City citizens have a lot to say about what goes on in their city. And I didn't see a lot of interface between the citizens and your organization.
Yeah, so I'm happy to address that. So when we do our discovery, we do an engagement as it relates to a survey, and a survey that goes to the elected bodies and staff, and that's one framing. And then there's a survey that's kind of more general, that's open to organizations and groups that might have a say about what they want to see in the community and why. What's missing. We really want to understand kind of where the community wants to go from that standpoint. Our job, though, is to understand what market realities are, right? And to really marry the two things and take incremental steps towards the right direction, which is, where the community wants to go, where the citizens, they say they want certain things. That's what we're going to work towards, right? But it takes incremental steps. And our job is to really work the confidential side of things, too. So we are engaged in confidential conversations, weekly, daily, as it relates to where some of these retailers are looking, where they're expanding, certain things as it relates to existing shopping centers on lease terms. And, we know that somebody might be going out of business, and, somebody could be coming in and backfilling it. All of those things that we work on that really, quite frankly, is not going to be open to the public, right? And even more so, some of the stuff we're going to have to share with you all is going to have to be confidential as well, to a certain point, right? But our goal is to hear the community from that standpoint, and through this body and through our points of contact, and work towards that, and really be your advocate and extension from that level.
I understand the confidentiality. Have you ever used Zen City?
Zen City?
Yes.
I'm not sure. No, I'm not sure if I'm familiar with that. No, sir.
I think when you come here, you can talk to our city manager. It's a tool we're using now, and I really like it. And I think most of the people that have used it or have seen it. But it won't work in all cases because it's not confidential enough. But
well, I think it's really good. It's really good to really get the input and the pulse of the community about where they're going and what they what the community aspires to be. I mean, as a former economic developer, now working in the community and economic development advisory space, I think that those are things that our job, you all as a staff and as an elected body, our job is kind of that party that's in between all of these folks that are making decisions, is how can we advocate for the right one instead of the one that's just an easy deal, a deal that makes, market sense or economic sense. Our job is to really get in there and advocate for the things that the community wants. And, we really see that as our opportunity to be at the table for you. And, I heard talks of, maybe you all hire an economic developer down the line, right? That is the perfect scenario for us. Having somebody that we can work with that is the local expert, which you guys are the local expert, and how can we marry what we're doing nationally and regionally and the statewide level and put those things together. And so it's really a collaborative effort to kind of advocate for all of that on behalf of the citizenry.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so what successes have you had with big box retail stores?
They are numerous. Pretty much any retailer and I'm going to just pop up a couple different scenarios here for you. Pretty much any retailer that's out there or that's emerging, we know how to get in touch in front of them if we don't already have a relationship with them. I worked in economic development in Georgia for a long time, and you saw economic developers move around a lot, as long as you knew the core network of folks, someone might move, but at least you had points of contact in different areas. The retailer industry kind of works the same way. You have somebody that might work at, say, Publix for a long time, but now they're working at Maple Biscuit Company, which is a sister company of Cracker Barrel. So people move around, and understanding that and understanding the relationships is pretty key. So we can get access to any big box or, emerging restaurant or existing restaurant that's out there on the national level. I will point out Johnson City just as a case study. We've worked with them for many years. It started out as a Kmart situation, a vacant Kmart. They actually had 2 of them. We're still working on that second one, but the first one was redeveloped into a Hobby Lobby Guitar Center and At Home. A group out of Atlanta actually did it. And we're still working on that deal, multi-phase over the years, and we have secured recently a purchase and sale agreement for a full-service restaurant end user that is only in Kentucky and Tennessee, and will hopefully one day make its way down to Georgia. But those are the kind of things we work on among, these other retailers that you see up there, some that we help locate in that market. That's just one example. This is a smaller market, but in Dunham Sports that we helped work with the property owner, and this was largely incentive driven, but to backfill a Kmart with Dollar Tree, Dunham's, and Badcock. Now it's a much smaller market than Peachtree City, but these were all big wins for those communities, Dunham's included. And then Monroe, North Carolina is a similar situation where it was a vacant grocery store that we were able to backfill with an Ollie's Bargain outlet. So really it's about, getting ahead of this stuff and making sure that we can address these issues and challenges.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have a question, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
Madam Mayor. The situation in some of our large big box stores have restrictions by the main realtors, not realtors, but retailers in there, like a Kroger or a Publix, that they can, put the no, that they don't want to have them in there. And how do you deal with that when you've got those restrictions and non-compete situations in a big shopping center?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we see that day in and day out with a lot of the vacancies that we work with. Ultimately, the way is to stay persistent, get creative, and public-private partnerships. Those are the big things that we really try to focus on. And if someone is not getting in the middle of these conversations and really pushing the property owner, a lot of times that doesn't really happen. I'm not going to bag on my industry by any means, but brokers are very transactional. A lease is a lease. If you've bought a shopping center and it's making money, what's the incentive for it to get backfilled? I mean, there's a lot of things that we work with cities on collaboratively to try to address these issues. And a lot of them aren't popular with shopping center owners. But at the end of the day, these things are things that need to happen as it relates to positive economic development for communities. And if there's a vacancy in a long-term scenario, it could end up hurting the rest of the center down the line, right? So there's an argument, and a valid legal one at that, for communities to be able to make to justify action and or at least encouragement for folks to get together and come to a solution as it relates to that. There is no easy answer to that. I will say that up front, and that's going to be probably our biggest challenge in working with you all, is to try to move the needle and to address those challenges and to identify, what those challenges are and making recommendations to move that forward.
Thank you.
If I could, sir, what's your annual cost to the city?
Yeah, so in our proposal that we shared with staff, we put in for year one $40,000, and then year 2 and 3 would be $50,000. And generally, so it's a 3-year agreement, but it's an annual agreement essentially. We review it each year. You all have the opportunity to get out of it, or we have the opportunity to break it. It doesn't really go that way most of the time, but it's really, we don't want to hold you guys into anything. We don't do success rates or anything like that. You all are paying us to do a job, to be your human resource extension and experts in this space. And we're here to support that and really anything as it relates to retail commercial.
So, but anything after 3 years, or you just you've done your job?
No, I shared Johnson
stick
City
around.
there. I think we just did another 3-year agreement with them. So it's ongoing, particularly as it relates to, retail cyclical, particularly in markets. If you only have a certain amount of growth over a certain time and then you get a bunch of retail, there's generally a lull. So, it's a cyclical thing. Some communities want to keep us on as an extension of their team for an extended period of time. And sometimes we hit 3 years and we've both gotten a whole lot out of it and we take a break and then they come back on, or we move on. But, the trust-built relationship and kind of us as a resource always remains.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, council? Mr. Graves, maybe we'll finally answer the age-old question, why don't we have Trader Joe's in Peachtree City? Everybody wants to know.
We've tried.
Yeah.
We've tried.
City Council, can I please get a motion? It would be to approve the Retail Strategies Agreement in the amount of $40,000 for retail recruitment and economic development services.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thanks very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. You all have a wonderful evening. Look forward to working with you.
You too. Public hearings, 11/23/03, request for, variance request for 100 Huddleston Road, sign height for Caliber Car Wash, applicant Denise Companies.
Okay, I'll read the protocol. When the public hearing is open, members of the public will become hearers. No action on their part is in order until the mayor declares the hearing complete. First, city staff will present the request and provide an assessment of compliance with city code. The mayor will then allow up to 10 minutes for the speaker on each side of the issue to present evidence. No individual member of the public will be given more than 5 minutes to speak. Time limits may only be extended by a majority vote of council and will be divided equally between those supporting and those opposing the issue. The mayor will recognize the applicant and those supporting the issue to present evidence. Remarks will be limited to a total of 10 minutes. The mayor will then recognize those opposing the issue to present evidence for up to 10 minutes. Prior to closing the public hearing, city staff and the public will be given the opportunity to ask questions of either or both sides of the issue. When the mayor and council are assured that the presentation of evidence is complete, the public hearing shall be ended, and council may then debate the issue and render a decision. All speakers from the public are asked to follow these rules. 1, please wait to be recognized by the mayor. 2, come to the microphone and state your name and neighborhood prior to making remarks. 3, keep individual remarks under 5 minutes and do not repeat comments. 4, address all comments to the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. The request is located at the property of 100 Huddleston Road. It is located at the intersection of Highway 54 West and Huddleston Road. It used to be a golf cart sales location. It has been recently redeveloped into a Caliber Car Wash. It is a multi-frontage lot, has frontage on Huddleston and Highway 54. And the lot sits about 18.5 feet below grade of Highway 54. It slopes down pretty quickly when you pull off of Highway 54 down onto Huddleston. The sign ordinance allows a monument sign for each road frontage that a lot has. So they are allowed to have 2 monument signs. They have an existing one on Huddleston now. And they are requesting to have a second monument sign on their on their Highway 54 road frontage. They have requested to exceed the maximum sign height of 5 feet in the city up to a 26-foot tall sign, so that the sign will be above or near or at the grade of Highway 54. Asked, your staff report included the variance criteria. It is different than the zoning and land use variance criteria. It is for the sign variance criteria are based on topography and visibility of the sign. The applicant is here tonight, or their representative is here tonight to answer any questions that you may have of them.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to hear from the applicant if you have any comments.
Good evening. Rick Lindsay here representing Caliber Car Wash. Robin always does a good job of summarizing what the issue is. We are seeking a variance to the site, the height of signs. What we're looking for really though is to have the sign treated just like every other sign in Peachtree City, where there'd be 5 feet of height from the road level going up. As Robin said, the topography there falls off rather steeply. I had it about 18.5 feet or so below. Robin, I saw that the variance request is asked for 26, so it must be 21 feet, but all we're asking for is 5 feet above the road level. There are a couple of other signs in Peachtree City that already do this. One of them is the Fayette County Animal Care Center up there on the east side. It's on a post, and the sign that they have is about 5 feet, again, from the road level up. I believe Dr. Cliff Boss sign does the same thing. And I think those were not annexed in properties when the city did the annexation of the east side. I think those were already in, but in any event, those signs are similar to what we're asking about. But here, you obviously have a severe drop off of like I said, 18.5, maybe 20 feet from the level of the road. So all we want to do is get our sign up to that level. The variance criteria for a sign, there's 4 of them. One is where the visibility of a sign from the proposed street is substantially impaired by existing trees, plants, natural features, signs, etc. And obviously, a 5-foot sign, if we were restricted and had put the 5-foot sign there at the bottom of the hill, 18, 20 feet below, would be about 15. The top of the sign would be about 15 feet below Highway 54, and nobody would see it. Also, whether the placement of the sign elsewhere on the lot would remedy the situation, and it won't. The entire 54 frontage is about 18 feet below, so no matter where we are on our property is all going to be below, well below the street level. Whether the problem was created by the landowner, obviously was not. I have to assume that at some point back in time, DOT raised 54 to go over the railroad tracks there, and that's why Huddleston Road comes off so steeply off of 54. And whether or not the variance would create a safety hazard to vehicular traffic. Staff has not recommended any conditions on this, so I have to believe the city engineer has determined that having the sign that, again, would be like every other sign in Peachtree City, where it's pretty low and from visibility point of view anyway, from the street not to exceed 5 feet. So the requested variance does meet the criteria. We would ask that council grant that. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I open the public hearing, can I see a show of hands, please, of those who would like to speak in favor? Can I see a show of hands of those who would like to speak in opposition? At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Would anybody like to speak in favor? Anybody change your mind? Seeing none, would anybody like to speak in opposition? I see one.
Monique Comiskey, Whitfield Farms. I sent a letter to the council earlier today thinking that this was going to be voted on this evening, but I just don't think, was not able to open this online, but the height, it's going to look like a huge sign even if it's behind the highway. I don't understand why they can't put a monument sign on 54. You can see it when you're right there. You're going to see this from much further away. Once the vegetation is taken out on the property that's next to it, once that building is taken out, for the time being, until that's all there, you're not even going to see this sign anyway. And it just sets, to me, it sets a precedent for future development and for people who have signs that are already difficult to see. I understand that it's because it's 18 feet down, but why can it not be closer to 54 and a monument sign?
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I hereby close the public hearing. Council?
Mayor, we approved one of these 3-4 years ago at West Park. And we did that because of the impending redo of the intersection out there.
The DLT?
The delayed the left turn as it is. And, you know, and that sign hadn't been built yet. So, but to put this thing up now, I think, because we don't know for sure exactly how that's gonna affect that particular area, I don't think now is the right time to even approach this as a variance, because number one, there's some other factors that we can't talk about tonight that's under litigation on signs, that I would ask that this be tabled until we are finished the road improvements or the intersection improvement of the delayed left turn.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I was going to speak specifically to this project, but I agree with Mike's comment, if you want to go that way.
Mr. Holland?
Yeah, I'm in basically the same area as Councilman King and DeStadio. You know, we've got other fish to fry right now. Let's get those things taken care of before we take a look at this. But I also look at this from a business standpoint. If this, the property owner came here and looked at that, he would know right away that he's gonna have problems with signage. But he has a monument sign. His address is 100 Huddleston. It's not 100 Route 54. It's Huddleston. And he has a monument sign right in front of his car wash. And for that, I would say, I would have to agree with the two councilmen that I think we should table this and come back at another time once we get all of our ducks in a row with the legalities before we take a look at this.
Mr. Prebor?
I guess I'll say I'm thinking the same thing. It's not just the sign, and defense of the business owner, it's not just the sign, the whole building sits down low. So that takes away from them also. Now, that might have been reflected in the price he paid for the piece of property. We don't know, but the one that we did at West Park was gonna be because of the displaced left turn, and it was just gonna be just a little bit above. It wasn't, I'll say, sticking out by itself like this one. So, as much as I'd like to support a business owner, I think if we could table it until we can come up with something better and the other pans out, and we'll see where that goes.
Rather than table it, it would be a motion to continue it, and you probably need to continue it to somewhat of a date certain.
Or we deny it and they can come back in 6 months. Is that true? Tabling it is.
I'm okay either way, because I don't want to do the client a disservice.
Exactly.
And it will be longer than 6 months, because I think we were told 2 years for the DOT.
Yeah, 30 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if we're looking for a motion, Madam Mayor,
You
want to make it?
Do we,
Go ahead.
before we make a motion, do we have another comment from the applicant?
Withdraw
it. If you would, as opposed to denying it, either allow the applicant, who's not, I don't have him here tonight, he's out of town, I apologize for that, to withdraw, or continue it so that we can discuss more with staff, and maybe we withdraw it at that point if there's litigation going on about signage, and I certainly didn't know about that. But if it's a denial, I don't want it to make it look like, oh, they denied it, you know, down the road, and it set some kind of negative precedent on this. So if you would table it, let me talk to the client, see if we want to withdraw or hold it to a future vote.
Okay.
Mr. Meeker, please advise.
Yeah.
I'll just make a motion to continue it to the first meeting in December, second meeting in December.
There's only one meeting in December.
Oh, how about,
No.
he might need more time.
I think
Yes.
he's going to need more time, and we're going to need more time with some of the other issues, too.
Yeah.
So if anything, would a 6-month be acceptable
to this?
I don't know, Clint, because I don't have my client here, and I apologize, he's out of town. If we could continue it to the 7th of December, because I know we have to have a definite time. And then we either will withdraw or we come back, and then we can say 6 months or whatever. If you can do that, that'll help me out and help, because I don't think the client, I don't think council perceives this. He's trying to do something to get an advantage over anybody else, just trying to have a sign that can be seen. But if you would, I would ask for the 7th of December, and then we'll decide at that point, maybe before.
Then Mayor, I'd move that we continue this until the 7th of December.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Council staff topics?
You had one?
Yeah, I'd like to address the two ladies and, well, the three ladies. This was brought about by a letter, or not a letter, but a statement by the mayor put in social media that said a couple things that were not true. One, that we, the 4 people named, formed this group. That's not true. I joined this group on the 7th of May this year, and I left it on the 21st of July of this year. And the sole purpose was to help clean this county's voter rolls. Now, I will tell you point blank that yes, on the 7th of December, I got a bunch of emails, I got 4 of them. And one was a request from an M. Ross, Margaret Ross, on from a private server to my private email that I didn't even look at. I didn't disseminate it or publicize it in any way. And on the 21st of July when I left, I deleted it. So to stand there and ask for my resignation, I resent that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else, council staff?
I have quite a bit to talk about, Madam Mayor, so it's going to take a while. First of all, we talk about the process. I heard that said a few times. This group of private citizens did a process. I contacted when we were going after the voters who had died and was still on the voter rolls. And I know that it's happened here in this city. So we wanted to clean that up. We wanted to compare the list of those who have died with those that were, let's call it, on the voter roll, still on there, although they had passed. So we went, or I actually went, to the probate court, and I contacted the chief clerk at the probate court. I called him. Her name is Lynn Crittenden. I called her. Delightful lady, gave me a lot of time, and we talked about, well, what we had coming, a spreadsheet. And I said to her, I want to make sure we're legal here and transparent. And she goes, yes, you are. You are transparent. You're asking about this stuff, and it's all legal what we gave to you. I said, okay, I'm going to send you an email to be sure that it's fully transparent, because I want it in writing, back from you as the chief clerk, that this stuff is, what we're getting is okay. So here's the email I sent to her. I'd like to read that. Lynn, thank you for taking my phone call today. I want to confirm what we spoke about so that I have it in writing for my files. By the way, this was in October I sent this. We spoke about Fayette County death certificate information that was shared through an open records request, an ORR, from Margaret Ross back in May of 23. I want to confirm that the various spreadsheets that were sent to Ms. Ross were open public records available to any citizen who requests them. I also want to confirm that the information provided by your office, the probate office, contained the social security number of the deceased person on that list. This typical PII, personal identification information, after their death is now public. That's what she told me. So I sent that off to her in an email. Here's the response. Literally within minutes, she sent the response back because we had spoken. I sent her the email. She sent it back. She goes, Clint, yes, sir. Years ago, we did have to redact the Social Security numbers. However, now that the system is linked to the administration, when the death certificate is registered, the number is automatically canceled and cannot be used again. Death certificate information are public records for anyone who wishes to obtain one. That's transparency in writing. So as far as I'm concerned, we did nothing wrong. We were trying to, you know, as the old adage goes, no good deed goes unpunished. And I feel as though Councilman King and myself were being punished unfairly for something we were trying to do good things for the city and clean the voter rolls. And by the way, the death information came out in late June or July, and basically everything that we had done prior to that from our May discussions was in the 191,000 that the state of Georgia wiped out, and obviously not all of them in Fayette County, but many of them in Fayette County,
The
you
number
know,
was
drop the mic.
651.
We're done. We completed what we wanted to do.
The number was 651.
Right, in Fayette County, 651. So, to further have transparency and openness, I reached out to the probate judge, Judge Jackson. Dear Judge Jackson, I hope that you can clarify the matter of the deceased voter list with your probate office providing to the group of concerned citizens that Councilman Mike King and I were working with related to city and county voter rolls. Mayor Kim Leonard has protested at our October 19th council meeting, and it appears that has contacted the news media regarding the list in question. She claims that information provided on deceased residents cannot be made public, and information of that nature is considered vital records. And access is restricted by state statutes, and there's a whole bunch of state statutes. I look forward to, I am also forwarding a previous email from your Fayette County Probate Office for your reference, which is the one I just read. See the attached. As the situation has now been made a political barb by Mayor Leonard and distributed to the television news, can you please shed some light on this matter, on whether your office could legally provide a list upon request, as I do not want to give errant data to the media. Your prompt reply would be appreciated. Okay? And she wrote back immediately, Mr. Holland, I received your email and was advised of your telephone call to the office. I will not speak to you about this until I have received guidance and instruction from the State Department of Vital Records, for which our office serves as agent and local custodian and registrar. To me, that is, don't fire and then ready aim. To me, it's get your ducks in a row, which is what I've done here, get your ducks in a row, and then release the information. Our little group did that indeed. Now, on top of that, I've got another statement I'd like to read. As you can see, I think I've come prepared tonight. This has kind of twisted me around a little bit because I do claim that I am transparent, and I practice that all the time.
Please direct your comments to
will.
the mayor, Mr. Holland.
Okay, I will do that. I am sure that most everyone can see the irony in our city council passing a resolution on civility just a short while ago, only to have one uncivil and discourteous act after another in the past several weeks. It's an election month, and the political tensions can be overly enthusiastic, but it doesn't have to be that way. On October 17th, the Citizen published my letter to the editor endorsing a candidate for city council. The letter was very matter-of-fact, and never once did I mention any of my colleagues on this esteemed council. My endorsement letter was followed by a blistering email from Mayor Leonard, replete with insults and accusations, referring to my letter as ignorant blather. I never spoken to a colleague on this council in that manner, and I never intend to do that in the future. I forwarded the mayor's email to the Citizen to show the constituents of this wonderful city what some of the city council are having to deal with from the leadership. Comparing the email to our resolution on civility, which we had signed a few months back with our colleagues, I would say we have a lot of work to do. Next, at our October 19th City Council meeting, Councilman Phil Prebor and Mayor Leonard directed some sharp questions at Councilman Mike King and myself about a list of deceased residents that was given to a group of concerned citizens, of which we were part of as a result of the open records request to the county government coroner. In this case, it was the one that I spoke about earlier, who was referred to as the probate court. The open records request from Margaret Ross just asked for the list of deceased residents in Fayette County that could be compared to the county's voter rolls list to ensure that the voter rolls were accurate. The record request did not ask for social security numbers.
Please direct your comments to the mayor, Mr. Holland. Thank you.
The request only asked for data that would appear on the public voter rolls offered to citizens and candidates, and additionally, the date of death. At my request, we were assured by the chief clerk of the probate court that the list provided the court were open public records available to any citizen. Copies of this correspondence are available on the city's network. Had either Councilman Prebor or Mayor Leonard asked me at any time prior to the drama of the October 19th City Council meeting about the situation, I would have gladly given him the correspondence from the officials at the probate court who provided the list. It's my understanding the city staff received the same list of deceased residents on a monthly basis. Perhaps the city manager can verify that. On November 1st, Mayor Leonard publicly commented on the probate court's releasing the list, claiming the court had breached the data and provided false information in her Mayor Kim Leonard Facebook page. Going back to our resolution and commitment to civility on our dealings, it would have been more polite and respectful had she personally called the probate court before the matter turned into a public scene. Perhaps the staff at the probate court made a mistake and provided certain information in error. I really do not know. The reassurance
order.
from the probate court.
Sir?
Point of order.
Yes, sir.
Not since December of 2013 have I heard such childish bickering going on this dais, and I make a motion to adjourn it before it gets any worse.
I have 2 sentences to read and I'm done.
I'm done listening to it.
Okay.
There is a motion on the table.
And the motion is to adjourn the
The
meeting?
motion is to adjourn for the evening.
I would like to,
Is that a legitimate motion, Counselor? Okay, thank you.
It's always in order. Somebody needs to second it before, I just got one thing I have to say.
we have tennis players here tonight. I'd like a conversation with our tennis players tonight as part of council staff topics. Are you agreeable to that?
No,
No?
I have a motion on the table.
Hearing no second, the motion dies on the vine. Finish up, Mr. Holland.
Perhaps the staff at the probate court made a mistake and provided certain information in error. I really don't know that. The reassurance from the probate court that the data provided was open to the public may have been an error, and that is up to the county government and the probate court, not the city. None of the lists were disseminated to the public. Let's make that clear. We didn't disseminate these lists. Copies were given to the County Government Board of Elections.
Are you finishing, Mr. Holland?
I am done. I just got this. Thank you for the time, but let me finish up. I hope in the future that we will handle such matters with more modesty and decorum. A little communication, research, and professionalism could have resolved this matter without so many political shots being fired. I have been informed by that the probate court is conferring with the state government on the protocol and process if there were errors made, and they will make the necessary corrections.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. Mr.
I'd like
Prebor?
to enter this into the minutes here. I have a copy for you.
Yes, and I do actually want to provide a clarification. For the point of order, Councilman, you should have stated the reason for the point of order. However, it was not. You cannot make a motion while you're interrupting a speaker to adjourn. Just
Thank you.
wanna clarify that.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Prebor, do you want to wrap this up?
Yeah, I want to be brief. Again, I always try to be positive for Peachtree City. I love this town. We're taking a black eye. There's a couple things respectfully would disagree with. I think your response that you received from the judge said that they're looking at it. She
Yep.
said she's not to comment.
That was just today.
That was just today. That's good. That means that I'm sure somebody will look at it. The official Code of Georgia annotated Title 50, Chapter 18, Section 72 addresses when and Social Security numbers of the deceased can be disclosed, and I will respectfully disagree with you that it is public record. And
It's them.
second, one of the things that I think Mr. King was talking about is that as a council, we talk about things here, right, professionally, right? There was I was told, and I looked it up and I saw it, a letter from you to the citizen, and respectfully, I'm going to disagree with one, that it is public record, as I just stated. Two, it wasn't my son-in-law that's affected, it was my stepson. And three, there's no reason to go to the legislature because those laws are already in place. And through open records, I found out there is a state investigation going on, and so I'm going to have no further comment.
And to wrap this up, in a spirit of full transparency, I'd like to share what we know so far, the personal data files of nearly 4,000 citizens who passed away in Fayette County from 2020 until May 15th of this year were shared. The data that was released includes names, addresses, birth dates, death dates, and social security numbers. It was not released by the city. My priority is, number one, full transparency in helping our affected citizens, such as Mr. Prebor, who has a personal stake in this, as do thousands of others, learn what happened, and secondly, we will work in full cooperation with any potential state investigations. And that is all we have to say about that. I would like to talk about tennis. We have people here who have their heart on the tennis court, and I think it's important to make some clarifications. First, it's important that our staff get more and more familiar with what's going on up at the tennis center. They took a tour with Jonathan and Curtis, talked about all kinds of possibilities for the coming year. Yes, pickleball, but also I just want to make it clear that a couple coincidences are happening at the same time. One is we have already hired a quality company to do an assessment of all of our recreation facilities, programs, contracts, everything. They are well underway. It's a very exciting time. Our last recreation master plan was dated 2011, so it's high time. I'm grateful to Bob that he took the reins, brought in a quality company, and we're underway. So we will include citizen input and public involvement as part of what we learn and what we decide to do next. That's a process. They've already started about 6 weeks ago, and it's going to take several months before we're ready to sit down, but it needs to be a very public process. And another coincidence right now is that we have a contract with, used to be Sequoia and then Club Corp and now Invited. We have a contract with them that's a 15-year contract. And we've been rolling along and unchanged and never even changed the name of the company on the contract. Well, next year, 2024, is year 15 of a 15-year contract. So we will be working together in good faith, all of us, to figure out what comes next, whether it's an RFP for another company to operate the tennis center, whether the city does it, and it's or whether it's some kind of a hybrid in the middle where we employ the pros and the instructors and the staff. So we'll see. It will be discussed, and I want for that to be a very involved public process. Fair enough. Anything else? Council staff topics? Can I get a motion? Do we have executive session?
We do. We need to discuss personnel in executive session.
Then Mayor, I move that we adjourn to executive session. for
Second.
personnel matters.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are in executive session. Thanks for coming out tonight.